Let's say you're hungry for a tasty investment. A fast food franchise might be the answer. Now, they seem like a great idea judging by the number of restaurants you see everywhere you look. So what are the numbers? Are quick service restaurants truly a good investment? Let's find out. This is Get Details, what you need to know. On this show, we'll stop by the top 12 restaurant franchises in the U.S. and the world. Now, I'll tell you right up front, some of the numbers may not be exact because these kind of things change all the time, and sometimes the real numbers are a little hazy, but we do the best we can. There are several ways we can measure the success of these top franchises. By the number of units, by the amount of money needed to open one, or by the amount of profit that you can expect to make. Let's start with the size first. There are over 250,000 franchise quick-service restaurants worldwide, and almost 100,000 of those are here in the U.S. The franchise model was born and raised here, and it can be a very lucrative business if you're in the right position. So which one is tops? No real surprise. Operating in 120 countries, the Golden Arches, the grandpappy of all the other restaurants, has the most locations with over 41,800 restaurants worldwide. And interestingly, the majority are not in the U.S., but 13,529 are, and that's quite a bit. California is the number one state for McDonald's franchises, with more than 1,260 restaurants. The number one city is Houston, Texas, with 126 locations. Next up is Starbucks. Serving coffee and food in 80 countries, they have over 38,300 worldwide locations. That's second in the world, and at 15,450, they're second in the United States. Number 3 in locations is Subway, spread across 110 countries. But they're the number 1 U.S. franchise in number of separate locations with over 20,500. And that's a huge number, but it's actually a decrease due in part to the situation with the Subway guy. You remember Jared Fogle? Back in 2015, he lost 245 pounds by eating nothing but Subway sandwiches. It made a great advertising campaign. And now Jared doesn't have a weight problem anymore. He's serving 16 years for, improper pictures and videos of children. So how bad did that scandal hurt Subway? Before 2016, there were over 41,600 locations worldwide. Today, about 36,000. That's gotta hurt. Number 4 is Kentucky Fried Chicken. Definitely one of the heavy hitters. There are nearly 30,000 KFC locations all over the world. As a matter of fact, there are KFCs in more countries than any other franchise. 147. The Colonel does pretty well overseas, but they've been struggling here in the U.S. with a slight decline in the number of restaurants. And rounding out the top 5 is Burger King. Known to hungry patrons in 116 countries. The home of the Whopper has almost 20,000 worldwide locations, including 7,000 here in the U.S. This is another restaurant that struggled recently and closed a few American locations. So those are the top 5 by number of locations, and here are the rest of the top 12. As you can see, Pizza Hut and Domino's are pretty evenly matched, as are Taco Bell and Wendy's. But there's a lot more to this story, like how can you get your own franchise? Which ones are the most affordable and the most profitable? We've got all the details. It's content made by humans like me for you. So the question is, how much will it cost you to open a shiny new franchise in a good location? And will it be worth the money? Let's find out. First off, there is a franchise fee. This is a one-time fee that you pay to the franchisor right up front to join up. It lets you use their business model, products, and trademarks. This is the first of many fees that you'll have to pay to get up and running. Now, if you worry about this one, there's another one I'll tell you about pretty soon that will really curl your hair. So, who has the highest franchise fee? It's a little complicated, but it's probably Starbucks. But they operate differently than the other companies on this list in that they don't really franchise, they operate partnerships. But the number you need to remember here is $315,000. When you see the profit numbers, you may not think that's too outrageous. Next for the initial franchise fee is Dunkin' Donuts, or Dunkin' as they're called these days, at $40,000 to $90,000. Now, this is a high fee compared to the rest of the names on the list, and this is for a 20-year term. In addition to the franchise fee, you'll also have a couple of other expenses that are unavoidable. Details on those are coming up. At number 3 for franchise fees is a tie between Burger King and Wendy's. at $50,000. As I said, this is upfront money and just the start of the trickle. Number 4, another tie between McDonald's and Taco Bell at $45,000. Not a small sum, but that's what it takes to start. Now here are the rest of the top 12 franchise fees. So are you beginning to really get the fever to own a franchise? Then you really have a lot of money, don't you? I hope so, because without enough liquid capital, they won't even look at your application. Liquid capital is money that you have just laying around, not being used for anything. They want to make sure you can afford their systems. So you have liquid capital. The top 2 are tied at $750,000 each. That's right. You have to have at least $750,000 of unencumbered liquid assets to own a KFC or a Taco Bell. Next is Starbucks, not far behind at $700,000. Then comes a 3-way tie among Burger King, Wendy's, and McDonald's at $500,000 each. Now here are the rest of the liquid capital requirements for the top franchises. Man, getting into a franchise is not cheap. It looks like a game for millionaires or huge companies. Now the key here is to own numerous locations and then just rake in the cash. Probably a great investment idea for lottery winners. But being profitable in the franchise business is very hard work, not luck. And there's a lot to know. That's why franchises exist, to work out the problems and the details ahead of time to give you a turnkey solution and profit. I mean, after all, isn't that the whole reason you want a franchise? To rake in the dough? Now, once we crunch all the numbers, Domino's is the franchise that's the least expensive to get into of all the franchises we researched. Their franchise fee was only $10,000, but they also have a reservation fee added, so the total there is about $35,000. Plus construction cost of $462,000 and $100,000 in liquid capital means the total to get started with a Domino's is about $600,000. Subway may be the king of sandwiches. It's the second least expensive franchise with a fee of $15,000. Expenses of a little more than $500,000 and $100,000 in liquid assets means that you'll need a combination of about $621,000 to get started with a Subway. Dunkin' has a relatively high $90,000 fee, capital investment of about $1.7 million, and liquid capital of $250,000 for a total of $2.127 million. Pizza Hut is also a more affordable option. The fee is only $25,000, costs are a little over $2 million, plus $360,000 in liquid assets for a total of $2.448 million. Burger King has a $50,000 fee, $2.2 million for facilities, and $500,000 in liquid assets. That equals $2,750,000. McDonald's $45,000 fee, $2.5 million outlay, and $500,000 liquid assets. That equals $3,048,000. KFC has a $45,000 fee, about $2.1 million for facilities and so forth, plus a $750,000 liquid asset requirement means you need $3.958 million for a KFC. Wendy's $50,000 plus $3.5 million for facilities, plus $500,000 liquid assets means you need over $4 million. And Taco Bell, another one that requires a high liquid asset, $750,000. Plus a fee of $45,000 and estimated cost of $3.37 million. That equals $4.165 million. Now we know how much we have to pay. So let's get to the good stuff. How much money would you make? Now here are the raw average revenue numbers, and they look really interesting. These are yearly figures. They're all estimates. The actual numbers may vary. Now that's a huge range from top to bottom. But there are also higher hurdles to contend with the more money you make. Now, if you're not especially wealthy, try Subway, Domino's, or Chick-fil-A. But if you have enough liquid capital, invest in a Kentucky Fried Chicken, or Wendy's or McDonald's, and you will not go wrong. So now you have all the info you need to start to make an informed decision on franchises. You know how much they cost and how much you can make. Now, if we can just figure out why the milkshake machines at McDonald's are always on the fritz. This is Get Details. Hey, thanks for watching, and be sure to check out our other almost informative videos. Stay curious. Get Details.